Hola todos. I'm going to do it in English, but I could do it in Spanish. So I'm Cyrille, I'm the CEO of Dotemu and the Arcade Crew, which is the indie publishing label of Dotemu. The Arcade Crew like this, so you can remember. And we specialize in indie games of very high quality that has a retro feel. So básicamente retro gaming, pero para los indies. Eso.
Hello guys, so I'm Denis from CI Games, a Polish company behind Lords of the Fallen and Sniper Ghost Warrior. We just created 2 months ago a label, indie label called United Label, and that's why we are here. We want to sign new developers from all around the globe. Very talented people from both talented experienced team to young students. At the moment, we only signed 4 games, but we are going to expand the portfolio very shortly. So the company is Polish, but we have team in New York who are working on Lords of the Fallen 2, and in Poland, France, UK, and Amsterdam as well.
Hey guys, my name is Marek, and I'm a producer at 11-Bit Studios. We're also a Polish company. We're developers and publishers. You may know some of our titles like Frostpunk or This War of Mine. These were the projects we've developed internally, and we're also publishing cool indie games. For instance, we're working with the Moonlighter guys from here, Valencia. So we know there's a lot of talent here, and we're super happy, or I'm super happy to be here today.
I'm Stephen from Merge Games. I do business development for Merge. We're a kind of a medium-sized publisher based in the UK. And we publish anything from through digital all the way to kind of retail and special edition collector's boxes under the Signature Edition brand. And the kind of games, we're not looking for a specific kind of genre really. We're looking for games that we, premium games on PC and console that we can really have an emotional connection with and kind of fall in love with. I guess that's my brief, which is quite vague, but you know, I know what we are after when I see it.
Yeah, that's a very good introduction, because my next question was going to be exactly what kind of game genres, which platforms are you skilled on, which territories do you only publish on digital, also on retail, just for all of you.
So we are, I guess our background has always been kind of RPGs, JRPGs. We've done a lot of retro and pixel type games as well. But we're trying to expand that, I think. We're trying to expand our portfolio a little bit in terms of theme and genre. And try and find games that are, you know, that just really excite us. So, for example, we're doing a city builder game, which is called Buildings Have Feelings Too. We've never done a city builder game before. It's very important to us that this game has depth and is very strategic, because we know how to kind of market those kind of games. But it looks like a children's TV show. This you know, it's a city builder, but the buildings are kind of front on. And they kind of are kind of humanized. So if you put a factory next to a shop, the shop will kind of stand up and go, "Hey, I don't want to be next to a factory," and walk away, you know. So we signed that game because we really liked it. We really loved it. Apart from one guy in the office who really hates it. It's one man who can't get it at all. So, but everybody else loves it, so that's fine. And in terms of territories, well, we're all over the place. We obviously digital is direct, but in retail, we go to North America. You know, we put games in GameStop in America, in Carrefour in France, in Game in the UK. So we're all over the world. We're not direct in China or Japan, but we have partners. So I think that's everything answered, I think.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. As 11-bit studios, we love developing games that are emotional, that are unique in some very clear and distinct way. This is, I guess, our primary focus. And we're mostly looking for games to publish that have or share the similar vibe. It's extremely important for us, for all the games that we work on, to be unique in some way and to offer, well, an experience that's not seen in the market very often. We love uniqueness. That's kind of our thing. The best of it comes from the emotional layer of the game, but it's not an absolutely essential thing. What we do mostly is digital publishing. We take care of marketing, PR. We finance the production of the game. And I like to think that we also kind of help developers in many ways because we're developers ourselves. So we deliver a lot of feedback. We organize focus tests. We take care of things like translations, support of the production in any way needed. Basically, I'm a producer myself. Before I was working for game development companies directly before I moved to publishing. So we like to think of ourselves as people basically helping indies grow their games and become successful after those games are created. And that's, I think, the core.
So I think at CI Games, one of the strengths is we are a mid-publisher, mid-size. So we are working on AA games, which is like $10 to $15 million budget, and also on sort of a smaller product, you know. So we know how to market on a global, worldwide level. So that's a strength. And what we are looking for in terms of game for indie games, I would say firstly for us it's the team first, you know, because you can have like 2, 3 different teams for one concept. It will be always a different game, you know. So I would say team first, with the team spirit, how you can work with the team. And second, I would say the solid game design with solid mechanics and kind of unique artistic direction, something which is kind of unique in the market.
So on our side, we are developers as well. We've been developing games for 10 years. We specialize in retro gaming, so we've been working on games like Peng, Windjammers, Double Dragon, Final Fantasy as developers, but we also published our own games, always from existing license, especially from Japanese license. But we wanted to move to the indie scene because we gathered a lot of experience and we love indie games. We're all gamers in the company, and we thought there was an opportunity to help teams. So our philosophy really is to find high quality indie games that have a retro feel. So it can be either in graphics, in gameplay, references, or all together. And the way we work with the teams is that we try to realize the vision of the studio. So we try to adapt to the needs of the studio we work with. If the studio needs funding, that's something we can provide. If the studio needs, of course, publishing services, we do all the kinds of publishing services that we would do for our own games. We publish worldwide. In Asia, we have strong bonds with Japan because we've been working a lot with the Japanese industry, especially as developers, as work-for-hire company, but also as publisher. But we also, of course, distribute worldwide, digitally and physically, by ourselves or with partners. But also, as developers, we help for many aspects of the game because we know that as developer, it's really hard to manage everything, especially with small teams. So basically, for example, we have a full team of testers and game designers that are giving all their time to the studios we work with to give constant feedback, to test some features of the game that are in development, so that developers can, you know, approach the project with a peace of mind, really not being stressed, try to be relaxed, so they can be the most creative possible, and realize the vision that they had initially in the game. When we invest in a game, we are in the same boat. So we really believe in the project. We don't have a lot of projects per year. We try to focus on very few projects that we think they have really high potential and with cool people as well. That's really important for us. And we really try to understand what the people in the studio want to make with their projects. And we give all our experience, all the things that we did in the past to kind of build the perfect strategy in all aspects of publishing to realize the vision of the team that's building the project. So it goes through a lot of work together, but also a lot of parties, a lot of moments with the studios. We try to really gather it as a crew. That's why we call it the arcade crew. We try to gather all people. We try to make that even the different studios that we work with end up working together and end up exchanging ideas. So we really want to build an ecosystem between different studios so that they can build the best project possible.
Okay, that's great. In fact, I was going to ask about what you seek in games before you sign them. I attended a talk by Callum Underwood a few months ago. He's a scout for Raw Fury, and he said that he looked for magic. I mean, he couldn't express exactly what they looked for into a game, but I think you all described it quite accurately. Now let's go to some more practical questions. How early do you sign games? I mean, do you ever sign games when they're in game design document moment or on prototype, or do you wait for alpha or beta, or it depends on the project? How do you usually work?
So basically, on our side, we don't like to take a look at projects when there is no prototype, because it's really important because promise is nice, but we need to see if you can actually deliver something. So it doesn't have to be very complete, but as long as the key features and the key aspects of what you're aiming for are in your prototype, or as long as we can have an idea of it, it's the most important. And then what we look as well, if you don't have any video or gameplay footage or trailer that you made, it's going to be hard for us also to understand what you're aiming for. So I would say the most important thing that we're looking for when we're looking at projects is, of course, the prototype. But before the prototype, like some kind of video, some kind of fake gameplay, for example, or fake screenshots or fake GIFs or something like that, that can give us an idea. Without that, with only a GDD, a game design document, it's really hard to really know what you're going for. So I know it's hard. I know it takes some time to make prototypes, but I think it's really important because otherwise it's too hard to choose.
Okay, so on our side, I like prototype, but it's always complicated to set a prototype to a management team who is not really a gamer, you know. So for me, for United Label, the most important thing I would say is the vision of the team. So if we see that the team has a vision, so game design vision and artistic vision, both together, and a team spirit as well, I think we can move forward and we sign projects, and we will sign project without any prototype. So of course we need like a game design, we need a pitch, we need some stuff, materials, but of course they need a prototype, but they don't necessarily need to show it to the publisher, you know, because sometimes it's very just placeholder and it's just for the pure gameplay. But for me, it's vision first, and then is coming the production, pure production, with all the milestone and all that stuff. So it's a global situation. And it's always you need to speak to the team to share their vision and to try to understand what they want at some point.
We on our side like to sign projects that are somehow demonstrable already. I mean, that have usually a prototype. This is the best, more convenient way for us of signing games. Maybe besides projects created by teams that we know well already. So this can, of course, then be modified a little bit, like the time when we'll be ready to enter the deal, if we know the team and we know what they're capable of, what their strengths are. But if we're working with a fresh group of people that we've never met before, of course we'll feel more comfortable if there's anything that we can touch and interact with, because design documents for us are obviously an interesting source of information, but again, because we're also looking for a very specific type of magic, we want to be sure that it whatever is written in the document can be transferred to the games world in a way that we will understand. Our goal is to work on games that we do value and we understand. We are aware of the fact that some amazing games out there do not match or fit our publishing portfolio and our profile, and that's absolutely okay for us. We got to have some rules for selecting a game, so that's our own kind of taste and understanding of the industry and our vision of how we want to be developing the company and what kind of games we want to have in the portfolio and why do they have things in common. And yeah, prototype is usually the stage where it's the easiest to understand the vibe and to see the vibe of a game that's being built.
I think as gamers, we've all seen kind of game videos or read about games and got quite excited, and then played a game and gone, okay, this isn't what I had in my mind. And I think it's the same with us, really. We do need to see, we need to play something. We need to play the toy in the game. You know, what's the toy that you're giving us to play with? What's the magic? And we need to at least taste that. We need to see that. It might not look like the final thing. It might not have the polish. But I don't think we've ever signed anything just off a concept or an idea. And this is not being videoed, is it? Because I'm going to say that it's not being videoed. We're okay. No, it's okay. But my boss, Luke, runs the company. It's a private company. They're just it's a family company. And Luke and Joanne, a husband-wife team who run it. It's a very kind of family company. But it's their money that we're spending, essentially, and their money that we're investing, or their time and their resources. And Luke is a salesman. He's great. I love him, but he's very, very sales-focused. So I think I'm a frustrated artist. You know, I market games, essentially. That's my background. So I can't create anything. I'm not clever enough to do that. And so what excites me are ideas and concepts and you know, the poetry in games. But Luke's not like that. He's about, will it sell? Can I make money? Can we make money for the developer? You know, he's very pragmatic. And so that's why a particular thing about us, I guess, and lots of companies, is that we want to play something. So usually that means probably about 18 months, maybe, you know, is around the time, between 18 months, 16 months is around the time we tend to sign, because that's when people have got something solid, they've got kind of proof of concept, and usually a slice or something, even if they haven't got the graphics in place.
Just like to add something to that, and give an example. Like we've received some games that looked beautiful. They had like thousands of followers on their Twitter account, thousands of retweets, and we were super excited. It was like, wow, it's so beautiful. The game is going to sell so well, and it looks super cool and everything. And then we receive the actual prototype or build, and it plays like shit. So it's really important, and we live that. And as publisher, we receive a lot of projects, and we're losing time if we can't play the prototype, just have to read the document. So if you want to get the publisher attention, do some marketing, but not aim for the public, aim for the publisher. Try to show him the best out of your game in a quick and beautiful manner, and try to show something tangible, like a prototype, something that shows what you're capable of doing and what you're capable of delivering, and what's the spirit of your team. That's really important. So really focus on trying to convince a publisher and do something that already has some magic in it, and it's super important.
Can I just add one thing? The issue with the prototype, you know, that's our point, you know, I mean, it's something to discuss, but we could miss some big opportunity with some small developers, you know, because some people are students, they have no time or no crew to make the prototype. So I honestly prefer a video, like a fake screenshot or stuff like that, rather than a prototype with some placeholder and some square, because it's really complicated to make it sign with people at some point, with the management team usually. And again, you know, it's more about the vision. You know, if you have the vision, if you know how to share it with the publisher, that's pure marketing at some point. Yeah.
Well, those are great answers. As you can see, most of the publishers agree about, you know, the need of seeing the vision, seeing the game working, and so on and so forth, depending, of course, on the team that's behind that project. I'd like to ask more questions about this, but I prefer to focus on the things that probably matter the most to the audience. For instance, do you fund game development? And if so, up to how much? I mean, suppose you get a game that needs like 1 million euros. I don't know. What should you do? Of course, considering it's a great game, an amazing game, and you love it.
No, on our side, it can go from 0, basically, of course, to up to 1 million, basically. That's our range for financing games.
So you asked the range or the?
Oh, so yeah. If you fund games, I mean, suppose I don't know, maybe one developer here has a project that needs like 10 million euros. I don't know, you know.
Yeah. So on our side, the good thing, it's a bit like 11-bit studio. We are a mid-sized studio, so we have a kind of power for the marketing, and we have some cash, you know. So if we find a very good project, and if it's AA, like 5-10 million, why not? You know, I mean, we can do it. But for the United label, so the indie label, I think maximum it's 4 or 5 million. Because if we go too much, that's becoming a AA. So I would say 4 or 5 million maximum. And it can be like 50 or 100K for the smaller product.
Okay. Are you listening, right? Okay. These guys have money. Okay.
So at 11-bit studios, are I can't say typical because every deal is totally different, but like the ideal budget would probably be around like the maximum around 1 million. That's what we're focusing on right now, but that means that that's the kind of money that we can spend. I don't want to say easily. We need to love the game, obviously, but that's the kind of money we have right here, right now. But we're open to special cases, right? We are open to investments that are much larger than this. We do invest much more in our internal productions. For instance, so if there's a project that we believe is not too big for us, because we're absolutely not into AAA segment, but really has the magic that we feel, that we like, but needs a much larger budget, we are able to scale definitely. And what I meant by the €1 million is the development budget. On top of that, we're assigning obviously marketing budget, outsource budgets for translations, QA, you name the needs that you will basically have. Of course, that's the maximum again, so we can work with developers who do not require financing, at least of the development. We almost always take care of the marketing expenses. That's about it. That might be interesting from your perspective. What we don't do is we don't work on too small projects. I mean, it's okay if the developer does not need our money, but we expect him to actually have a pretty decent budget to deliver the minimum production value that we believe we currently need to be competitive on the market.
So I guess we're kind of lower, I guess. Our top end is probably 500,000 euros. The reason for that is, I guess, because we're a private company mainly. We've always said, though, that that's our limit because we don't really want to go externally to fund anything. However, having said that, there's a couple of projects in the pipeline that we're looking at right now, which are probably going to be next generation projects, which will do that, which will exceed 500,000. But they're like really exceptional for us, and we know we've got funding partners that we can go to do that. But yeah, generally our ceiling is 500,000 euros.
I'd just like to add something, kind of an advice. We were talking about it earlier with Steven. Don't undersell your project and don't oversell it. We're an experienced publisher and also developers, so we know what a game costs. We know also where you live, so we kind of know what's the cost of life and everything. So both ways, like if you undersell your project or if you oversell it, then you won't be taken seriously. So really, like, don't be afraid to pay yourself, because if you don't pay yourself, then we would say, okay, so how are you going to make it for 2 years? You're going to eat pasta every day and that's it, you know, like that doesn't make sense. We want you to make a good game. We don't want you to lose 20 kilograms, you know, like, so don't oversell it, don't undersell it. Try to really be honest with the publisher on what it's going to cost and what you think it should do, and then maybe the publisher will say, oh, maybe we can put more, or maybe, oh, it's a bit too much, what can we take out of the project? Usually that's not really our policy, but on our side, for example, if we receive a budget and we feel it's completely underrated or undersold or oversold, we don't go further usually, because we think like, okay, they don't know what they're talking about, so they're not really serious about their project. So it's really important that you take the time and say, okay, so if I were to work in a company and I had a normal salary, that would cost that much, and that's it. And then from my freelancers or whatever, my friends or whatever, it will cost that. Just say the cost, don't be afraid of it. It's your project, it needs money to be done, so just tell the right price.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your honesty, and that's a really great piece of advice. I think in Spain it happens that we more often undervalue our projects. I usually work as an advisor for some institutions, and I work with really young teams that had just started, and sometimes they say, hey, I have this great project, but it's like 100K euros. It's like, so what? I mean, if it's profitable, if it's going to make $1 million, then don't be afraid. I mean, you're going to find a publisher or someone who funds it. You only have to convince the publisher that it's profitable. But I think in Spain, our problem is exactly the opposite. I mean, we undervalue our projects.
I'll actually add one thing to all of that. I guess in many, many different situations, money for development is not a big problem, actually. So if the game is worth it, the money will show up, for sure. Don't be afraid of that. Just focus on having a concept that really kicks ass. The money will come.
Yeah, that's a really great piece of advice. Any questions? Just get your chance, okay.
Yeah, usually we have the experience of seeing many projects, so if we see that maybe it's a mistake or maybe it's an error or, you know, it's something, it's not a huge delta, you know, in a huge difference, then we'll ask questions like, what do you mean by that? Like, did you count this and that? Is it without the graphics for this part or whatever, without multiplayer? We'll try to dig a bit if the project is interesting. But if the project is, we're not really convinced and we see that the budget like doesn't say anything, then we'll just drop it. But of course we'll try to, and we'll say to the developer like, this budget doesn't really make sense to us, so we're not really confident, you know, and we'll give the feedback as much as possible. Every time we refuse a project, we try to give as much feedback as possible so they can improve. But then it's kind of too late, you know, because after like, they will say, oh no, sorry, it was not 200,000, it was 500,000. Like, come on, you know, like, it's a bit hard after that to be confident in the team's skills.
Also something, you know, it's always complicated to forecast your cost, you know. So it's usually evolving. It can be decreased or it can increase, you know, but it's complicated for you guys, you know, to make a proper forecast with a milestone. That's the most tricky stuff, you know, so we also need to help you for that at some point. And the best partner should help you, should be very transparent with you, and should not avoid this topic. That's very important, you know. So, but it's okay, you know. I mean, I mean, I don't expect from indie publisher to provide me like something very super deep, you know. I mean, we need to work it together. I think.
And this is all of this isn't kind of altruism. It's not just being nice for the sake of it. Publishers don't thrive unless there's an independent development scene, which is active and pays itself and is able to live and to build businesses. That's what we need to help you to do. So you're coming and I often see that a lot of developers are very committed to one game and and all they see is getting that game out. But really, you're building businesses, not games. Games are kind of the vehicle that gets you to a business, to build a living, to build a bigger business, and to really fulfill all your ambitions. And without a healthy development scene, we don't exist. We don't have a business. So we're not being nice by saying, pay yourself what you should pay, value the work. It's an ecosystem that we have to feed. So with this, we had this conversation about, I saw a game, Gamescom, and they showed me the budget, this team, and they were a brand new team, so they're quite naive, but I just said, okay, just close the PowerPoint. I don't want to see that budget again, never show it anybody again, take it home, double everything, bring it back tomorrow, and it wasn't being nice, it was being realistic.
How much time it's okay for you for the development since the moment you sign with a team? And the second question is, do you usually work with close deadlines and that kind of style of work?
So we usually work, I think if I understood the question, we'll put deadlines in place, but we tend to be, we don't work to fixed sales slots. So we don't sign a game and go, okay, that's for December 2020. We have a timetable in place, like all game schedules, but last week I was in the office and somebody said something's coming early, and something's coming early. I've been in games for 26 years and this has never happened. This has never, ever happened. It was a port, but even so, it came in early. They were like, what is it? This works. What? So we understand the business, but obviously, we have to have some structure. And we normally work, and that's why I said before, kind of 16 to 18 months is normally ideal for us. Kind of 16 months out from a project is normally our structure, and then we have milestones within that. We're pretty, because I have a portfolio career like yourself, I work with other publishers. I think Merge are quite lightweight on production. I've worked with other publishers who are very heavy-handed, and then there's different varying degrees, I think, between. And I think there's so much choice of publishers now. I think you have to get on with the people. I think somebody said that fundamentally right at the very beginning. And have a mutual understanding of if things are going to move, why they're moving, and that there's reasons and there's understanding, and that transparency is really important. Did that answer the question?
On our side, probably the minimum amount of time we think we need, or it's even kind of optimal to market a game, to fully support it in media and so on, to deliver it to all of our partners and build the awareness. That will be something between 6 months and maybe 8-9 months. And it would be great if we could find amazing projects that are almost finished. Like that's a perfect situation for us. But it almost never happens. And if it happens for a reason, and usually this reason is a little bit fishy. So the reality is that we are open to working with teams that need 2 years, sometimes 3 years to develop a project. Because this is, well, 3 years is kind of a lot, but sometimes it's really justified. And by saying 3 years, it's probably 4 years, right? That's what it usually means. So yeah, we know how much time it takes to create a game. We're trying to have to use that time in as optimal way as possible, but we're prepared. We do games ourselves. Sometimes we take like 5 years to develop one, which is a lot, but it just takes time. And we're definitely focused on quality. So we have few years to the best. That's kind of the optimal option for us. When it comes to milestones, of course we have milestones, but it's more of a way of naming the risks and decreasing the risk over time. I often like to compare my milestones, because I'm a producer, to artillery. The first shot is usually, just, it's kind of you try to make a mark and then decide whether it worked at all, and you keep on shooting as you go through the process, and finally, probably a day before, after passing the certification, you can finally nail the release date. But you can't, in many situations, you can't really precisely plan that in advance. So yes, we do have milestones. Yes, they are our goals and targets, but they often have to be moved, because that's the reality, especially if you focus on quality and not purely on dates.
So I'll try to have a different answer. The reality is we are in the most competitive market of the world. It's around 10 or 11,000 games a year on Steam, and I don't count App Store and Android. So the answer is polishing or differentiation or both, but it's polishing forever. If you can reach the best quality and if you can wait, that's okay. But the reality is, the more you wait, the more it's expensive. So sometimes you can't wait. And it happens to us with Sniper Ghost Warrior 3, We had to finish the game, and the game was not ready, but we had to release it. And crazy mess, But unfortunately, sometimes you have some financial problem and stuff like that. So, but I think for indie games, the quality is really the answer. If you want to be different, if you want to stand out from the crowd, quality forever. Polishing, playtest, feedback, community. That's the best.
Yeah, I really like your analogy, Marek. It's perfect. I always tried to find a good way of explaining that, but that's perfect, the artillery. So I won't add anything to that. That's exactly how we feel, and that's exactly how we live things with our own games. So basically, in our contracts that we do with studios, there are milestones in the contracts. Alpha, beta, gold, submission, whatever. But it's never respected. It's a goal. It's something that we try to reach, and in our contracts, in our agreements, it's never like condition like that we would say, oh, you didn't respect that milestone, and so we break the contract and we stop everything. It's completely, it's best effort basis, we say. But of course, it's a good way for the studio as well to know where we are at each step. Are we very far from our goal? Are we close? Why? And of course, it's a good tool as well to know if the team is there or not. It can be for good reasons, because finally the team realized that there was something super cool to do, but they didn't realize before they started to develop it, so it needs more time. Okay, no problem. But if there's no reason and it's 3 months late, then there is a problem. So yeah, try to, it's a good exercise anyways, and everybody should do that. Even before you sign with the publisher, you should really be as precise as possible. And you're wrong, for sure, but try to be realistic and precise. And of course, keep in mind that the longer you wait for release, the further the money will come, so it's important to release as close as possible to your goal, but the most important is the quality, because if you release an incomplete game, then you would have invested everything and it won't work anyway. So our philosophy is when we invest in a project, we go all the way with it. But that's right. That's why we try to get the best teams, have the most confidence possible in the teams we work with, because we know they will try everything they can to reach that goal and reach that quality, whatever happens. So both things are important. Take in account, of course, that the longer it takes, the more it's going to cost for the publisher, and even for you, it's going to be tiring. But at the same time, try to be very realistic on the production of your game. Yeah.
That's a really great piece of advice again. Another tricky question, okay? We've worked with 3 different publishers, and the 3 of them have like different default agreements. What are your usual default revenue share proposal when you're working with developers? And do you do a recoup of those expenses before sharing royalties with the developers? Just by default. I know every game is different, but I mean, suppose you're just sending a default agreement to a developer.
So basically on our side, I'm going to try to make this quick. Usually we start from 30%. That's the minimum that we take. It means really like we value our investment in the project to that minimum. So even if we don't invest anything in the development, we will invest everything in QA, localization, relationship with the first parties, events, PR, everything. So we will spend money, whatever happens in the project that we work on, and we will take 30% for that. From there, depending on how much we spend in addition to that in the project, depending on the team, depending on the background of the team, the background story, the popularity and everything, there are so many different factors that then we'll get the cursor move on to if we take more, if we take, and like, if there's a super opportunity and it's like a killer studio, we can go under 30%, but it's a case per case basis, but 30% is a good, like first point, and from there we can go more or less, but usually 30 is the minimum. And then from there, for the recoup, on our side, we recoup the marketing costs, but we are very transparent. So any marketing costs, it's written in our agreements that it needs to be approved by the developer beforehand. We spend something, we ask the developer, are you okay? We want to do this, it's going to be cool, are you okay with it? They validate or not. Usually they validate because we're very good at convincing them. And then we only recoup that amount. We don't recoup our salaries, because it's not really transparent, we think, because we had the situation, we were published by publishers ourselves, big publishers, and they put like a huge amount of salaries, and we're like, what the fuck is this? Like, how can you control that? So we only recoup what we can show with a bill, like, hey, like, we spend that for your game, and that's what we're going to recoup. The salaries, it's part of our own investment.
So that's the same for us with this kind of expense, and we need to be super transparent, and all the developers are able to ask some kind of financial control, because that's very, very important. And for the deal, this kind of deal structure, one of the key thing for United Label, all the deals we signed are different, but all. So I have no guideline, I have no percentage. 30% is not the minimum for us. That's really depending on the team, the budget, the timeline, the platform, whatever, many things. And all the deals are different, depending on the partner. So flexibility, and we are agile, And so one of our key thing, usually the first thing I ask to the developer is, what do you want? And sometimes he sends me something, I say, okay, let's go. Or let's discuss that, let's discuss this. But usually, the developer needs to be very happy about the deal. Needs to be super confident. And if he's confident, then we can go, Because that's a long journey, a game, it's like 1, 2, 3 years, even more with the DLC. So the developer we are signing with, that's a relationship, So flexibility, yeah, and depending on the type of people, of the game, whatever.
It's kind of similar for 11-bit studios because the deals we sign are usually unique depending on the developer's needs. Of course, we would like to probably have a deal with a set percentage and then a full recoupment of marketing and development budgets. That happens. But sometimes we modify these agreements. For instance, when the development team needs money quickly after the release of the game, and not all reports will come on day one. Obviously, not all the money flows back to the publisher from the sales of the game. Then sometimes the recoupment, for instance, of the costs that we assign to the project is not 100%. It's just modified a little bit for the team to actually have quick incomes. So yeah, it's always a handcrafted deal based on what the developer expects, what we can offer as well. It's always a
one of the points in the whole negotiation process. What I think the only constant, well, there are two constants there. First of all, both parties want to make money, obviously, so it has to be a fair deal. The second thing that we value is if the developers have obviously enough interest in selling the game to be motivated. We don't like working in a work for hire model. So for instance, we would feel uncomfortable if the team does not have much, and you can define much in your heads, after the game is being released, right? Because this would mean that probably the team is earning money in advance during the development process. And this is an investment phase, but we would like to see that as covering the costs as they come, and then potentially earning much more money at the end of the process when the game sells and is successful, because that's how that's what the situation is for us. So we're always trying to keep it fair and to make sure that both parties are actually motivated to, well, finish the game and then support it after the release because they can and they will have money out of it.
Again, I can't give you a figure, a percentage split. I know we're kind of industry standard. We're not exceptionally generous, but we're not, we're not mean. We want things to be fair. The facts that I can tell you is our deals are very, very simple. Often our deal sheets are never more than 4 pages for a publishing deal. If we take a game to retail, or certainly if we take a game to signature edition, collector's edition, at that stage, it's a very simple deal. It's usually 50-50 once cost of goods are out of the way, because at that point the game has really established itself, it's made some money, and it's kind of incremental income. So it's kind of very kind of simple, those kind of deals. But yeah, the kind of for the specifics of any deal, it's so because we're dealing with startup companies and it's their first game. And we know we're going to have to do a lot of work to get them over the line and spend kind of different types of money on that. And then we're also dealing with people who it's their 7th game. They're very established ex-Ubisoft teams in Michigan. So really very diverse.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot again for your honesty. I have to say that regarding our experience, it matches very much what all of them said. We've worked with publishers that took 30% and up to 50%. All of them recouped their expenses some way or the other, sometimes only marketing, sometimes marketing and localization, sometimes royalty advance payments or whatever, but it matches what all of you said. So, any other question before going on? No? Okay. We personally think that the role of publishers nowadays is more important than ever. Now it's easier than ever to publish your game, but it's easier than ever to have your game vanish from the front pages of the platforms. How do you approach that relationship with the platforms to get your games featured on the storefronts of the shops? Because I think that's a key element to boost sales.
I've got this. I think often it's just kind of having those relationships and knowing when to ask and what to ask, knowing what they can offer, how they can boost the things that you're doing as a publisher, how they can boost your own kind of efforts, being very transparent with plans for platforms, making sure that you know the tricks that, and I think all of these guys know, none of this is exclusive to Merge, but that, to launch on PS4 in Europe and to launch on PS4 in the US, you do it on different days because the stores switch. That, okay, the best I can get from PS4 in Europe is going to be, a blog on announcement and a blog on release. And then knowing that actually Xbox has different tools and channels that you can use. and just asking for the maximum, really, but also being realistic. We all have established relationships with the platforms that have been forged over years, and so we know the intricacies of the platforms. I'd be surprised if anybody here wasn't talking to the platforms already about the next generation of whatever comes next. Maybe it will be something that with a wire that you plug in, or maybe a coat hanger, or an aerial, or a satellite dish. Who knows what the future holds? But yeah, it's kind of knowing intimately how those machines work, and knowing how to ask and knowing who to ask. And sometimes it's just knowing the right people, and these people have been, I've been hanging out with these people for 26 years, and my boss for 15 years, and then knowing the machinery of these big companies, and also knowing, because I used to work in mobile, so knowing what motivates those different companies. So actually, you want to get featured in Apple, you make it all about technology, you make it all about how it looks, you make it all about using every asset of the current iOS software generation. If you want to get featured on Google, well then I think you just pick a god and pray to it. But it's different. But and the same with on HD platforms, on Steam and Sony and Xbox, they're selling hardware. So think about what motivates them, and pitch it to them correctly.
Okay, I think we have 5 minutes, right? Yeah, more or less. Okay. If you agree, just to finish, I'd like to make one question to each of you, so that this goes a bit quicker. Okay. So, Marek, according to your experience, suppose I'm going to self-publish my game. Which languages would you translate my game in order to sell more, other than English, of course? Let's say you have to choose 5 other than English.
Okay, obviously English is number 1. The second language I would choose would probably be German or Chinese.
Yeah, let's talk about an hypothetical game. I mean, we don't know exactly the genre. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think that the most important languages for us currently are English, German, Chinese, Russian, French, Spanish, and Spanish because half of the world speaks this language. Portuguese is on the rise, but Brazilian Portuguese. Turkish, but these are that's the tier 2, right? But the ones I mentioned at first are the most important ones because those markets are the biggest. That's a pretty simple answer.
Okay, thanks a lot. Next question. I think the way games are sold changes every month. A few years ago, I think media had a lot of power, a lot of influence about just turning people to buy a video game. But what do you think today are the most important curators in order to move people to buy a specific game? I mean, suppose I'm self-publishing my game. Where should I invest my time and money in order to get specific curators that are going to boost sales?
I think it depends on the genre and the budget of the game. For example, on our side, we have Lords of the Fallen 2. It's a double-A game. It's 12, 15 million. And we have United Label Games. It's 500, 2 million. So, of course, it will be more community-oriented. And for a bigger project, we have the big influencer, or it's a big media, the E3 booth, close to 11-bit and CDP, So that's really depending on your target, on the sales target as well, the sales forecast, and depending on the game genre, really. So so the perfect answer would be maybe be flexible depending on the genre, the target, the budget of the game, and making a kind of research.
Okay, thank you. And Cyrille, with our latest game, Do Not Feed the Monkeys, we worked with Our Premium, which is a Russian developer, and for them, it was very clear that for a game like Do Not Feed the Monkeys, they have to build a community behind the game. Likely they had that community almost made because they published Beholder in the past and it worked quite nicely. Suppose I'm going to self-publish my game again. How should I build a community around my game? I mean, from nothing, from scratch.
Good luck.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's super hard. It's really, really, really hard to build a community around your game. There's no 100 different ways. I would say like the starting point is the announcement. So you have to know who will play your game, who are you targeting, and make a communication for your announcement that will target those people first. Like the guys you know they will like enjoy your game for sure and will buy it for sure. You have to target those guys first to start with a core for your community, a solid core that they won't move and they will be eager to have news from your game all the time. And from there you can build around it and go a bit further, maybe a bit less technical about your game, a bit less graphical, a bit less about other aspects of your game that will touch other people's heart that are not from your core team, but it takes time. So you have to be consistent, you have to be regular in your communications, you have to answer the questions of the community, you have to install a dialogue between you and them so that they know if they ask a question, you'll answer. And from there, it will start to grow. If your game has enough quality, enough things to show, then it will start to grow organically. And try also to talk to the influencers, the streamers, the Twitter people, or whatever that are in your target as well, that you know these guys will like your game. Like, for example, with Windjammers, when we announced the game that was coming back on PS4, there is this guy is doing wrestling in the US. He has, I think, like 2 million subscribers on YouTube. He has a YouTube gamer channel. And he's a wrestler. Like he goes on a ring and does American wrestling and stuff like that, but he loves Windjammers. So when we saw that, right away we contacted him. We offered him to come to France to test the game and everything. He accepted. And now he's the best salesman for the game. So you have to really right away see who are the people that could be interested in your game, contact them, try to sell your game to them first, and they will work for you afterwards if they really like what you're doing.
Okay, thanks a lot. Is there any other question? You know, this is a one in a lifetime chance. No? Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for your honesty. I'm sure you know about this, but almost every developer has so many doubts about what publishers do, what are their conditions, what they can do for developers. So having this session with you is amazing, really, guys. Thank you. Thanks a lot, and thanks everyone.